Listen, Anne and I have a little announcement to make. We're getting married.
Hey! Congratulations!
Anne, the window's tinted. Can't see her.
Good night, then. I picked you up before, haven't I? The hospital.
Hospital?
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. St Mary's maternity.
What's he talking about?
He doesn't know, does he?
I'm getting out.
Hey, unlock the doors. Yeah, you can leave us here,
Oh, I can't do that. Shut your fucking mouth!
Quick, the window!
Pair of pricks. Fucking behind yourselves!
Find me the loo.
Don't worry, we'll make regular stops. Oh, look, Anne, poor Patrick's crying.
Where are we going?
You believe in ghosts, Anne? When she appears, she's always after the same thing. A child.
She's waiting for us.
You've seen her, haven't you? Yeah, she has. She's seen her.
Everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, ghostly cab riders. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How you doing, Mike?
Doing really good, actually. Not that there's anything different going on, but just, I don't know, for a Monday at work, the day kind of cruised by. I don't know, maybe there's some new podcasts I listen. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts anymore, but like the ones I do listen all happen to have episodes, so maybe listening won't make the day go by quick. But that
I'll
said,
take your
also
word
with us, it's Don and Ellie. Oh, yeah. Also with us is Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right. Well, this week it was VOD week again. No theatrical release. So looked to the horror app to see what they had. And they had one that I actually seen a trailer for like months ago. Didn't get any type of release here that I know of. And I kind of forgot about it, other than the fact that I remember, hey, there was a movie with Nick Frost in it. And then when it popped up on Shudder randomly, I was like, oh, yeah, that's the one. And it is called Black Cab, listed as a horror thriller. And the synopsis is as follows. A couple who find their jovial cab driver diverts them to a remote haunted road, revealing disturbing motives and his true intentions. Okay. Let's talk about Black Cab, starting with our general thoughts. Venom, did you enjoy your time in the backseat of the Black Cab?
I'm going to say no. Overall, this movie is fairly well made. There's actually the opening credit sequence is probably some of the nicest cinematography and just film work that we get in here. What's funny is that the opening credits actually write a check that this movie cannot cash. It implies that the movie is going to be very supernatural. And then when you actually watch the movie, yeah, there's a supernatural element to it. There's an argument whether the supernatural element even needed to be there, but it is there somewhat. And then the third act of this movie happens, and just like last week, holy shit, yeah, the third act just kind of ruins all the good, the good grace that they earned with the first two acts. I definitely enjoyed Nick Frost. Nick Frost, I mean, he's got that perfect British kind of personality where he's like equal parts fun guy and equal parts douchebag. But it's so thoroughly entertaining that, I could watch him in almost anything. So, he was great. Our main star, Synovi Carlson, I thought she does a fine job. And this movie really, it does have a total of about 6-7 people in the cast, but I mean, you're spending the majority of your time with 3 people, and even out of those 3, it's really 2. It's really Nick Frost as Ian, and then Synovi Carlson as Anne. I think the major problem with this movie is that it's just too ambiguous for its own good. This movie asks about 50 questions and maybe answers 2 of them. So by the end of the movie, you're just at least for me, I was left scratching my head like, what the hell did I just watch? Like, are you implying that the ghost is real? Are you implying that that Ian, the cab driver, never actually did anything wrong? Are you implying that he did many things wrong? There's just so much ambiguity in this movie. And folks, anyone who's listened to me for, a little bit of time knows I'm okay with ambiguity. I'm okay with movies leaving the ending up to the interpretation of the viewer. But this movie leaves the entire fucking story to the interpretation of the viewer, because I mean, by the time you get to the end of the movie, you could make an argument that none of what we watched even happened. And then there's other possible explanations for the ending as well that make me just as unhappy. One in particular that's going to infuriate me if I'm correct on that one. But obviously, we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. Yeah, I just got to say, man, this movie, it starts out well. It starts out with a decent mystery. Nick Frost does a good job of being that kind of goofy, friendly cab driver. And if you've ever been to the UK, most of their cabbies are like that, just very friendly, very vocal. And then his heel turn just comes out of nowhere. It's like obviously you start to realize that there's something wrong. This cab driver is not acting like normal cab drivers. But then when he finally reveals his true intentions, it just kind of comes out of nowhere, which I do appreciate. I'll give it that. And then the rest of the cab ride where, he's not being the fake friendly guy anymore, where he's being the real Ian. I actually enjoyed most of that. Most of the conversation between Ian and Anne, I enjoyed. Especially once they knocked out Patrick, because he's a giant douchebag anyway, and the less of him, the better. But yeah, like I said, I mean, we're on a streak of like 3 or so weeks now where the third act of the movie that we review just ruins everything beforehand. And yeah, this movie left me scratching my head that I have no idea what I watched. I don't even know if this was a legitimate horror movie by the time I was done. This could have just been a psychological thriller with a horror element that maybe wasn't even real. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do for the spoiler section, because I'm not 100% sure what the fuck happens in this movie. Like, I'll tell you what my eyes saw, and I'll try to explain what my brain interpreted, but I'm probably still going to be way off base. This movie is just too ambiguous. If I have to give this movie, a short one-line review, too ambiguous for its own good. That's my one-line review, because they just don't give us enough here. You set up a nice little mystery. You give us some likable characters on both sides of the fence, both the antagonist and the protagonist. But then the ending makes no sense too. Like when we get the reveal of what Nick is actually trying to do, I'm like, what kind of retarded marmoset would think that plan would work? That would never work in a million fucking years, you moron. So just that irked me. And then Anne's reveal at the end of, that made even less sense. I'm sorry. I wanted to like this movie. Like I said, it's a well-made movie, beautifully shot at night, mostly in the woods. Even the cityscapes that we get at night look really nice. Good performances, decent score, decent editing. But this story, it's like the director doesn't want us to know what this movie's about. You know what I mean? Like, if you walk away from this movie taking it at face value, it's a potentially crazy cab driver who sees shit. Or it's a supernatural story with a, very poignant message at the end, which I seriously doubt. But yeah, I'm just going to say this movie, it disappointed me incredibly. I was so disappointed with this. This movie is only 88 minutes long. It's not even a full hour and a half, and I still felt the time just dragging after a while. Like I said, once we get to the third act, I'm just yelling at this movie. Just end already. Just fucking end. I'm sick of all of this. This story is stupid. Your motivation is stupid. I just wanted it to end, and when it finally did, it gave us the ending got even more fucking ambiguous than the entirety of the third act. So yeah, I'm sorry. This movie's sitting on a 4.1 right now on IMDb, and that's being generous in my opinion. And I think that 4.1 is all because of the performances of our two main characters. Otherwise, there's not really anything to write home about with this movie. So yeah, that's it for my general thoughts. Just a real wasted opportunity and just way, way too ambiguous. Like, what are you thinking about Bruce Goodison? Just, it's like they couldn't write an ending, so they just kind of let the movie stop more than end. So yeah, that's it. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, not only is it a 4.1, but it's a descent 4.1 because I know it's been going down like compared to I think even compared to a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure if it's a week or 2 weeks it's been on Shudder, but I know the rating was higher, so it's like the more people that see it, it's going down, which is not a good sign.
Nope.
Yeah, but I'll kick it over to Don for your general thoughts on Black Cab.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Venom kind of nailed a lot of my general thoughts on it. Looks good. Horror themes questionable. What the fuck is going on? That is pretty much the majority of my notes for this one. Yeah, the whole thing looks fine enough. The setup is okay. There's some unnerving moments as the thing rolls along and you try to figure out what the hell's he going on about. What's this point of this whole ride? Why are they going down this road? All the typical questions that would arise when you get this sort of a plot line. And yeah, then the second act comes along and you start figuring things out, but how does that tie into what went on first? Like, who's doing this? Why are we? There's just way too much going on here that doesn't have any kind of explanation whatsoever, and yeah, it just really, really takes a lot of the sting out of the film. There's way too much banter going on. Frankly, for me, I think this one probably should have served itself better as a short segment in an anthology film rather than being stretched out to a feature length. There's just nothing here going on. And yeah, it looks good. Yeah, Nick Frost kind of, you really start distancing himself from Shaun of the Dead and, the jovial character he was there. But I mean, I'm not a person that really cares too much either way about performances and acting. So, I mean, that doesn't really influence me one way or another. Yeah, there's just so many questions about what's happening. And then the third act comes along and then that thing just blows open so many other questions. And I mean, yeah, talking about them is not necessarily going to be the strongest point of the show because there's a few I was actually intending to ask you guys about because I was kind of clueless. And I mean, we started up the recording pretty quickly, so I didn't have much of a chance to ask. But yeah, figuring out what's happening here is probably going to be a fool's errand because there is very little about this that makes any kind of sense. And I don't know where this thing could have gone, what it's trying to do. I mean, like I said, the central idea is decent enough, and it probably could have served itself nicely as a short in an anthology segment, but I think that's pretty much where this thing would have lied because it's just so hard to tell what's happening, and it's so hard to really make sense of any kind of plan or any kind of motive and I mean, explaining this thing here, the synopsis, I'm kind of curious to see what's going on because I was kind of lost about it. And yeah, the horror about it is really kind of questionable. I mean, it plays more like suspense psychological thriller than anything else. Yeah, I said it a couple of times. I think this would have been a lot better as just a trimmed down 30 minutes short in an anthology and been happy with it. Because yeah, stretching this thing out to a feature length, it just drags. There's very little explaining when it's not doing anything, and yeah, the horror in this one, it kind of feels lacking in the end. So I mean, I don't know much else to say about it because I don't know what's happening in this one. So yeah, unfortunately, it's back to you, Mike.
All right. Yeah, I have a lot of the same things to say about it. When I saw the trailer months ago, from my memory, I didn't get supernatural vibes from it at all. If anything, my immediate reaction was like, "Oh, so we're gonna get like a lower More Man's Unhinged, that road rage movie with Russell Crowe from a couple years." And assuming the movie we got, I was okay. It could turn out to be better than I expected. That's not the movie we got. And like the first thing I'm doing as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, considering the budget, considering the cast, considering relatively, not anyone in this known, I'm like, your first mistake was wasting the fact that you overachieved even by getting Nick Frost for this. Like, it's not that I consider Nick Frost like the superstar A-list actor, but he's well known enough that I gotta imagine that for a movie like this, you are fortunate that you got Nick Frost to do it. So I'm like, you don't need all this supernatural junk in here. Just make Nick Frost an unhinged like cab driver or whatever it was, and let him chew scenery and be the crazy guy. Just like, I mean, that's why I liked Unhinged so much, that Russell Crowe movie, because they kept it very simple. Just let Russell Crowe go on a tear and act absurd and over the top over like some road rage, and you had kind of a fun 90-minute entertaining movie that to me was way more fun than it had any right to be. So that's what I was kind of hoping for this. Give me a simple movie with an over the top unhinged cab driver played by Nick Frost. Unfortunately, way too convoluted with the story, which has already been said by both of you guys. The supernatural stuff, I had trouble following, even if what purpose was, what kind of story they were trying to create. I mean, I kind of get some ideas out of it, but like Venom said, it's like, are they trying to tell us he's just totally insane? Was this supposed to be some backstory as to why he is who he is? Was it just all on his mind and he's projecting that onto his passengers? Like, what the hell is going on, and why? Why did you have to make this like bigger than it needs to be, more difficult to follow than it needs to be? I think especially something that goes like straight to Shudder, for horror fans, I'm sure the majority of us would have just been happy to hinge Nick Frost for like 90 minutes. But that's not what we got. I mean, in bits and pieces, yeah, Nick Frost shined a little bit just because he is who he is, but I still think he was like underutilized for like what he could potentially offer to a movie like this if they just would have kept it simple. And yeah, I guess you could make the argument out the supernatural considered less of a horror and more of a thriller. But even then, okay, so we don't do it on Fresh Cuts, but you still a decent thriller. Instead, you made it convoluted with this supernatural stuff. What just to, I guess, say it was a horror movie, but it feels like the movie was less good because of it. So, other than that, it's just mostly what you guys both already said. I'm pretty disappointed because I don't know. I felt like we could have just had a simple, entertaining movie, even if it wasn't like the greatest thing. It still could have been a lot more fun than it ended up being. It was more just kind of frustratingly difficult to follow and a little boring because it just didn't really go anywhere. And by the time it ends, you're just kind of thinking, okay, I have questions. I didn't really understand that. Yeah, so not a cab I'll be hailing to take another ride in anytime soon.
I think
So go ahead, Adam.
I was gonna say I think disjointed is the best single word review you can give this movie. It feels like the writer and director didn't really know what the central theme, what they wanted the central theme of their movie to be. So they played around with different ideas and then ended up with this very ambiguous film. And what's funny is that Nick Frost actually does have a writing credit in this movie too, even though the main writer is Virginia Gilbert. If you watch the credits, he actually does have. It says I think the credits said something like dialogue, additional dialogue by Nick Frost or something. So maybe he just kind of ad-libbed some of his lines, so they gave him a writer's credit, which is potentially what it is, since Frost and Pegg and that bunch are really good at ad-libbing. But yeah, just disjointed. Like I don't know if this movie knows what it wants to be. Does it want to be a ghost story? Does it want to be a look at grief and guilt and how people deal with that? Do they want it to be a movie about a crazy cab driver? But ultimately, I don't think Nick Frost or Ian is necessarily crazy. He's not just a complete psycho. He is a man with a plan. It's just that plan is incredibly stupid and doesn't make for an entertaining film. So yeah, it's just one of those weird things that I feel like there's the backbone of a great movie here, but they just didn't finish it. They didn't finish, adding all the great elements that would have made this a great classic horror film. And what's funny is that I tend to say I'd rather filmmakers try something new and fail than do something that we've already seen 1,000 times. But you know what? In this case, I'm going to make an exception. I would have been endlessly happier to just get a very basic, crazy cab driver movie with Nick Frost just being an absolute unhinged psycho for no fucking reason. Don't even give me a fucking backstory. I don't need it. But then you give us this story that's so disjointed that I don't know what the fuck, who did what, like what actually happened to Ian's son. Like, they never actually say whatever happened to his wife, whatever. Did Ian hit that girl that he was talking about, the story that he told about the girl getting hit in the woods and then dying, blah blah blah? Was that him? Was he portraying, was it like a sort of confession, telling that story? Or was it actually, no, he had nothing to do with that accident? He's just retelling this story like he does to all of his passengers. Yeah, it just, man, there's just so much that leaves you scratching your head with this movie. And like I said, I know a lot of people out there like ambiguous movies, like when the filmmakers leave a lot of space for the viewer to then interpret it. And like I said, generally I'm okay with that. If it's one or two elements that you're going to leave ambiguous and let me decide what the ending of the movie means, cool. But the majority of this movie is ambiguous. Like the ghost is ambiguous. This stupid relationship between Anne and Patrick, it just, there's so much there that we never get to see. Obviously, we get revelations as the movie goes along that really drive the point home that Patrick is a major douchebag that doesn't deserve Anne, but does it matter is the question. Like, by the time it actually happens, does it fucking matter? I don't think it does. It means nothing. Like Patrick's admission at the end of the movie, so what? It literally meant nothing, so why even do it? I don't know. So yeah, just overall, on top of the fact that Patrick is an incredibly unlikable character, and I was incredibly happy that he was knocked out for the majority of the cab ride. At least we didn't have to hear his, macho ass. And by the way, biggest guilty pleasure of the year so far for me was him crying. The fact that his fiance, this little 110-pound soaking wet woman, didn't break down, but fucking Patrick cries. He's crying in the car. Oh my God, I'm sorry. That was such a guilty pleasure right there. So yeah. Ultimately, I don't know what else we can really talk about without really getting into spoilers. So I'll just ask my co-hosts if they have anything to add before we get into it.
Yeah, I'm just drawing a blank.
So am I, buddy.
I think I covered I covered most of what I had to say. Yeah.
All right, well let's get into this. This should be a quickie, though it might not be a quickie because of all the confusion. I mean, we're probably going to be asking a lot of questions of each other. Not that any one of us understands the movie more than the other, I would imagine. I only got a chance to watch this once. I was busy with Godzilla stuff all weekend, so yeah, I only got to see Black Cab once. But let's get into it. Our movie opens up with an opening credits sequence, which I kind of alluded to earlier, where it's this nice kind of ethereal, just a camera going through this section of the woods. It's foggy, it's nighttime, it looks really cool. Suddenly, as the credits progress, we start to see a woman dressed in white walking around in said woods. And then towards the end of the credits, we realize that she's actually a ghost. She's not even like a living person, because eventually we can see right through her. So we realize that, it's almost like the opening credits are telling a story in and of themselves. Then once our movie starts, we're introduced to Anne and Patrick. They are a couple who they're together, but they don't really seem like they're ultra happy with each other. Like, Anne is a very quiet, subdued woman, whereas Patrick is very loud, boisterous. He's the extrovert, whereas Anne is the introvert. And at the dinner, Patrick makes an announcement. The first part of the announcement is that him and Anne have gotten back together, which I would imagine is fairly obvious, as these four people are at this dinner party, or at a restaurant, excuse me. They're out having dinner. But then he announces that they're engaged. And when you see Anne's face, you could tell Anne did not want him telling people that they were engaged. Instantly, Anne's friend Jessica pulls her aside and says, "Are you sure? I mean, you just got back together with this guy and now you're going to marry him? Like, what is going on?" Anne takes offense to Jessica kind of, if you will, poking her nose into her affair. But obviously Jessica's just being a good friend, because, I mean, we only see Patrick for like 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of the movie. And anybody with two working eyes can tell Patrick should not be with Anne. Patrick is just a domineering. He's one of those guys that's got to be the center of attention. And potentially abusive. I mean, we never get any actual confirmation that he's been abusive, but he is a cheater, and we do get confirmation that he's a cheater. So at the very least, we know, he's a piece of shit. Anyway, they end up leaving the restaurant. Anne tries to get a cab by herself. She doesn't want Patrick to go home with her. She's incredibly pissed off at now Patrick and Jessica. But unfortunately, Patrick gets outside before she's able to hail a cab. Once she does hail a cab, of course, it's our friend Nick Frost playing Ian, the cab driver. He ends up picking up our couple, and off they go. Obviously, Nick comes off as a very, fun-loving, happy, friendly kind of, UK cab driver, just kind of relaying stories. At one point, he actually tries to make Anne feel better, because he actually says, "Would you like me to pull over and kick this douchebag out of my cab?" Because, he's listening to the conversation that, where he's being an asshole and she's trying to be more diplomatic and quiet about it. But then eventually, Ian stops the cab. He says he has to make a phone call. Very unusual. I mean, you would no cab driver is going to stop in the middle of a ride to make a phone call and leaving the meter on, which of course pisses off Patrick. Unfortunately, the car has safety locks, so they can't get out. The back doors of the car, it's kind of like a police car, or the child locks. The child locks are on, so I'm sure cab drivers have that function too, so that people can't ride and dash. He won't unlock the door until they pay him, which would be a smart move. Anyway, he stops to make a phone call. He's claiming that he's calling his wife to find out about his son who is sick. But then when he comes back to the car, he goes to the trunk of the car and pulls something out. We can't really tell what it. At first, it looks like a map. It looks like he has a map in one hand. But then when he walks around to the car, to Patrick's side of the car, he opens the door and pulls out a fucking cattle prod, a big ass industrial cattle prod, and tases Patrick, knocking him out. He's out cold. Anne starts screaming, and Ian, says, "Keep screaming and I'm going to knock you out with this thing." which of course gets Anne to be quiet. Ian zip ties Patrick's hands to the handrail inside the car, the little handle that people can hold on to, and then zip ties his feet together, and then he zip ties Anne's hands together so that she doesn't go anywhere, and then he straps her in with the seatbelt. It is discovered during this part of the cab ride that Anne is actually pregnant. As it turns out, Ian, this cab driver, he recognizes Anne, and apparently this guy's got a photographic memory because he remembers that he picked her up from a maternity ward. And when he says that, Patrick instantly gets freaked out, and Ian realizes, oh shit, Patrick didn't know that you were pregnant, did he? Oh, sorry. And he apologizes very insincerely. So that kind of starts up a big part of the argument in the car until, like I said, Ian tases Patrick, ties them both up, and then they just start driving. Now, throughout the film, Anne has also been having nightmares, almost like premonitions, where she's pregnant inside of a cab, in the backseat of a cab, and she goes by this certain area near Stratford and I forget what the other towns that were on that sign, but it basically a very distinct street sign that has 3 street names on it. And she doesn't, the dream never ends, letting her know what's going to happen. She just feels like something bad's going to happen. On that drive that day, that night, she passes by that street sign, that exact street sign with the 3, street name or city names on it. And then she asks, where are we going? And Ian is like, well, we're already here. We're going to, and I forget what they call it in the movie. It's a specific road, Mabel Hill or something like that might have been the name of it. I don't care enough to try to remember. Basically saying that this stretch of road has been haunted ever since a young mother was hit by a car. Apparently her car broke down. She and her young daughter then started walking. Unfortunately, she was too close to the road. A car came by and hit her, but it didn't kill the daughter right away. It must have hit the daughter and knocked the daughter into the woods. So the mother died instantly right there on the road. Unfortunately, the little girl died of exposure a few days later, 2 to 3 days later. So, and then he says that ever since that event, this road is now haunted. You can, every now and again, you might see a ghost on the side of the road. Up until this point in the movie, I think Anne has already seen 2 ghosts. One was in the cab when Nick first pulled up, Ian. When he first pulled up at the restaurant, she saw a pale woman in the back seat, but then Ian claims there was nobody in the cab when I picked you up, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, as they're driving down the road, Anne again sees images of the ghost, either in the reflection of the window, because it is raining, so there's condensation on the window, blah, 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 blah. Eventually, he ends up taking them back to his house. He also talks about, we start getting more and more information about his actual relationship. We find out that he's not actually with his wife anymore, that his wife was making accusations of him cheating, that because he drives his cab at night, she was accusing him of cheating. I thought he drove his cab at night so that he could kill people and not get caught, but as it turns out, that's not the case. He's literally just a cab driver trying to provide for his family. But then once his wife, I forget her name, Angela or Elaine or something like that. Once his wife makes that accusation, it seems like the marriage is pretty much over. She asks for a divorce. Again, I don't know if they're actually divorced at this point or if they're separated or if she's dead. We actually see a ghostly image of his wife, and we know it's her because of a picture that he has in the cab. So it's like, did he kill his wife? I don't know. The movie doesn't want to fucking tell us. Did he kill his son? I don't know. The movie doesn't want to fucking tell us. So basically, he takes Anne and Patrick back to his house in a very secluded part of this haunted road. At that point, he basically explains that his son has been taken away from him, and he thinks that it was the spirit. Again, I don't know if maybe the mom actually took the kid away from Ian and he's just using this ghost as a justification, like saying, oh, my wife would never do that to me, it had to be a malevolent spirit that took my child. Because then we get the reveal that he's not just a crazy psycho trying to kill people, he actually wants Anne's baby. And like I said, my friends, whenever I see this as a motivation, it's like, are you fucking stupid? How, in this day and age, in this day of instant information and the internet and everything else and DNA, how do you think that you're just going to kidnap a woman? By the way, a woman who only recently found out she was pregnant, which means you're going to have to keep this woman in captivity for upwards of 8 to 9 months, even longer if you want her to breastfeed the child. This is such a fucking stupid, convoluted plan, but up to this point, that's what we know the plan to be. So eventually, Ian is such a shitty fucking kidnapper. He literally leaves his keys out in the open for Anne to pick up and try to escape. Now, at first, I thought he did that on purpose because the camera shows very clearly that he just puts the keys on the coffee table and then walks into the kitchen. I'm thinking he did that on purpose. He's going to let Anne think that she can escape so that he can then fuck with her outside. But no. He's just a moron who left his keys out and she eventually tries to escape. Once he thwarts their escape attempt, he ends up changing his mind because originally he said he wasn't going to kill Patrick. He said that if Anne cooperated with everything he said, he would let Patrick live. But then right here, after her escape attempt, he basically changes his mind and says, yeah, you know what? Patrick's not going to live. He pulls out a box cutter and unceremoniously slits Patrick's throat, killing him fairly instantly. At this point, Anne is freaking out. And by the way, right before Patrick got his throat slit, he admitted to his fiance that he was fucking Jessica. The friend at the beginning of the movie that was trying to be so supportive of Anne is fucking Patrick. Oh my God, just more and more reasons for me to hate this fucking movie, my friends. Oh my God. Anyway, at this point, Patrick is dead, and he is very definitely dead. He's not pulling a Jason Voorhees by any stretch. He's gone. Now it's down to Anne and Ian. And eventually Ian is able to subdue Anne. He recaptures her, subdues her, and then he starts driving down the haunted road again. And this time we get more of a reveal of what his plan is. Nick is so convinced that the spirit, the ghost of this dead girl on the road, stole his child, which wouldn't make sense unless Ian was the one who killed this woman. But anyway, he's convinced that this spirit stole his child, so he thinks that if he takes Anne's baby, that he could make a swap, that the spirit will give back his real son, and the spirit will be happy taking Anne's baby. Oh, my God, how fucking stupid can one human being be? Mind you, this didn't come from a conversation that he had with the spirit. This is just him speculating. He just came up with this out of the blue. Like, oh, maybe if I kidnap a pregnant woman, take her child, and give it to the spirit, maybe she'll give me my son back. Though he has no confirmation that his son is with this spirit. For all we know, his son is probably with his mother. She probably left him, and Ian just went crazy from, being left, by his wife and son, that maybe he just formulated all of this. Like, maybe he's seeing ghosts because it's his way of dealing with his guilt for being, I don't know, a bad husband, a bad father. I mean, whatever you want to go with. Like I said, I don't know if Ian has ever killed anybody before this day. If he's never killed anybody. It just, like I said, the movie is so fucking ambiguous. It's annoying. Finally, we get to a part of the road where we see the spirit, we see the ghost standing out in the middle of the road, and Ian stops the car. This is, where he kind of lets Anne know what his plan is, and then Anne drops the biggest bomb of the movie. she lets Ian know, I'm not pregnant. I was pregnant when you picked me up that day at the maternity ward, but I had a miscarriage in your cab that day. And how did she have a miscarriage, my friends? While she was in the back seat of Ian's cab the day that she went to the maternity ward. This is a flashback, mind you. We see two ghostly hands come up from behind Anne in the back seat. All we see are the hands, and literally start to caress her stomach. And then the hands fold over her stomach. And then we see the hands unfold and almost like drag as they go back into the seat, disappearing, almost like it's grabbing something, if you will, out of, her womb or whatever. So at this point, of course, Ian goes crazy because he was convinced that Anne was pregnant. She now gives him the reveal that she's not pregnant. But then Anne starts chasing after the ghost because of this little flashback that we saw with the hands. Now Anne is convinced that the ghost took her child, that her miscarriage was due to this ghost. Which, it could have been, but again, the movie doesn't give us any crystal clear answers. We have to come up with our own interpretations. So, like I said, Anne basically starts accusing the ghost of stealing her child. You took my baby, you took my baby. And then she starts chasing the ghost into the woods. She's running all through the woods. Eventually the sun starts to come up. So finally it's morning. So literally this ordeal has occurred over an entire evening. She is basically running through the woods. Finally, she finds before that, actually, let's talk about Ian. Ian, after Ian gets the reveal that Anne isn't actually pregnant, he just walks off. He walks off in the opposite direction of where the ghost is standing. Literally, just walks. Like, he's not chasing Anne. He's not trying to kill her anymore. He's literally just like, he's so distraught that his plan went to shit that he just starts walking. Eventually, he gets back to his car, which doesn't make sense because he left his car facing, basically walking in the opposite direction the car was facing. But then he walks down the road, and when he gets to the car, it's facing him. Starting to sound familiar, folks? Anybody who knows me knows how much I fucking hate time loops. I'm starting to think that this movie is a fucking time loop movie. And the reason I say that is because of the end. Anne is still running through the woods trying to find the ghost. Eventually she finds a road, runs into the road, and unceremoniously gets hit by Ian in his cab. Not intentionally, mind you. He basically just hits her. But when he gets out of the car to see what he hit, there's nothing in the road. And Anne suddenly materializes as a ghost in the back seat of Ian's car, and the movie fades to black from there. My friends, I don't know if this movie is secular in the sense that, like I said, that they basically just go through this, that Anne was just the ghost the entire time fucking with Nick. Or another interpretation could be that the ghost was real and that the ghost was looking for its daughter so badly that it would be willing to take anybody as a companion. Like, it wanted a companion because of the, incredible loneliness of being dead. So she basically has Anne run into the road, get hit by Nick, and now she is a ghost. So now the ghost has its companion. Not that we ever see the two spirits together. All we see is Anne's spirit in the back seat. And then yet another interpretation is that none of the events that we watch in this movie actually occurred, that it was all in Ian's head, that Ian is so distraught from losing his son, maybe killing him, maybe killing his wife. Again, we don't know. But he's obviously racked with some kind of guilt that potentially he imagined the entirety of this movie. All the events of this movie were basically his coping mechanism for the guilt that he was dealing with. So that's 3 possible interpretations. There might be more, but if I ever get confirmation from the director that this is a time loop movie, I'm fucking done with it. Folks, anybody who's listened to me for a while knows I can't stand time loop movies. Fuck The Endless. The Endless was boring as shit. Fight me. I don't care. It's just all of it. Just time loop movies have never worked for me. I have yet to watch one that I actually enjoyed. And that's not hyperbole, my friends. I have never seen a time loop movie that I enjoyed. So if this is a time loop movie, I instantly hate it. If this isn't a time loop movie and it's all just in Ian's head, I instantly hate it. But if it is the really oddball interpretation that the ghost just purposely wanted Anne to die so that she would have a companion on the road with her, which is a stretch, I know. I'm sure people are laughing at me right now as they listen to this, but I'm trying to come up with any interpretation I can come up with for the end of this movie. Those are the 3 that I was able to come up with, but the movie doesn't do you any favors. It doesn't try to help you figure out what is the correct interpretation. Like, I actually watched, believe it or not, I watched 2 ending explained videos for this movie, and the 2 videos had 2 completely different interpretations. So it's like, well, who's right then? And obviously neither one of them, they're just random YouTube channels, so it's not like they have access to the director or the writer or anything. But yeah, like I said, this movie is just way too ambiguous. Good performances by Synovi Carlson and Nick Frost, decent score, good cinematography, nice locations, but ultimately it's a very disjointed and hollow movie. It's almost hollow to me, like it has no substance to it. So, like I said, take from that what you will, but yeah, I am not a fan of Black Cab. And like I said, it's one of those things, like with Heretic, even though the 3rd act of Heretic also soured me to that movie, I can see myself watching that movie again because Hugh Grant, that whole conversation in his parlor was fucking awesome. The whole Monopoly analogy, the fast food analogy about religion, like all of that was so entertaining. This movie, there's nothing for me to want to go back to. Like, there's no reason for me to ever want to watch this again. Nick Frost's performance isn't nearly that great. Like, I'd rather watch Shaun of the Dead or Paul or one of those movies again. Endlessly more entertaining than this one.
Holy crap, I forgot about Paul.
Yeah, Paul was awesome. A lot of people have forgotten about that.
I liked it. I actually liked it more than World's End.
Yes, same here. I loved Paul. Paul is a very underrated, underappreciated movie. I know it has its fans, yes, but because of the Cornetto trilogy, obviously that being, the more popular of the movies that Frost and Pegg have done. But yeah, man, Paul is great. Anyway, like I said, Black Cab, the ending is up to your interpretation, my friends. And ultimately, I think they're all stupid. So, yeah. Sorry.
So the 2 explanation videos you watched, did those 2 fall in line with 2 out of the 3?
Yes.
Possibilities.
One of them agreed with the companion thing, which, like I said, was that was a weird one. I'm like, yeah, I guess I can see that. And then the other one went with the time loop. The other one was like, once Anne shows up as a ghost in the back seat, that's confirmation that she's stuck in a loop. As a spirit, she's stuck in a loop. And that Nick or Ian is also stuck in a loop just because of his own grief and, his own trying to cope with his grief of losing his son and wife, who apparently, from what we could see in the movie, it seemed like he genuinely loved his wife. It's not like at any point he snapped and said, fuck that bitch or whatever. I mean, It seemed like he legitimately liked her, loved her. But obviously, she was making accusations about his fidelity because he works nights. My question is, was he actually cheating? I mean, it's not like a wife to just pull infidelity out of the air,
I feel like that was another loose end that wasn't tied up. Was like, what exactly was going on with their dynamic as a married couple? Because,
we never
usually,
see it, so,
usually in movies where you get bits and pieces of story like that, by the end of the movie, you're gonna know definitively, like, okay, yeah, he turned out to be doing this, or no, she was just like one of the two have to be like liars or crazy or something. But we just never really get that closure.
Yep, not at all. I mean,
I mean, I
I'm more
consider Time Loop
confused at the end of the movie than I was halfway through.
I mean, I was so dead set on Time Loop, I almost didn't realize that there were other explanations. But
Yeah,
I,
and
I
that's the
mean,
thing, man. If it is a time loop, then I instantly hate this movie. Sorry.
yeah.
It's just me. It's a personal thing, folks. I've yet to see a good time loop movie. If I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me what time loop movie I need to watch to change my mind, because of the ones I've seen, I hate them all. So I'll leave it at that. Back to Mike.
All right, well, our cab ride appears to be over.
Yay!
Yeah, looks like this one was on the house because services were not rendered. So we're gonna close out this episode of Fresh Cuts. What new do we have? I mean, I'll start off saying the No More Room in Hell 63 is recorded. The main reason I haven't put it out yet is because I was very late getting 62 out, so I wanted to give 62 a little time to breathe once it got posted before I turn around and throw 63 right away. But probably within the next week, I'll be getting 63 all ready and good. So I don't know why I decided to be the one to start out with that instead of going right to Venom, but I'll now go to Venom.
Nothing new from the last time we recorded. Obviously, like I said last time, No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Episode 32 is the latest episode where we looked at the greatest monster movie ever made, the original Godzilla, 1954, with our special guest, the returning to podcasting, Mr. Jerry Herring. And that's about it, other than, the main show, which Mike already talked about. We don't have a Crystal Lake gift shop to speak of. We don't really have much of anything else to speak of. Obviously, coming off of October, I'm still waiting to find out about my potential guest spots. I mean, the later we get in the year, the less I think they're going to actually happen. But yes, as of right now, I am still slated to appear on Cut to the Chase as what it was supposed to be a Halloween hangover, but now we're halfway through November. We're beyond halfway through November. So at this point, it might be a Christmas episode. And then, of course, my guest spot on the podcast Under the Stairs for the second round of Horror Head to Head. The first round, for those who are following, the last episode of the first round was just released today. So I would imagine in the coming days, I'll hear from Duncan again to start getting episodes for the second round together. And that's honestly all I have, my friends. Nothing much more to report. Like I said, October's a crazy one. We do have a Halloween commentary for those who are interested in commentaries. We did do a commentary for the WNUF Halloween special, which we had the whole family together for that one. Don and Derek were both there for that one. So we had the whole No More Room in Hell family commentating on that one. Otherwise, that's all I have, and I'm not sure what else I'll have for the rest of the year. It seems like things are going along very slowly right now, so hopefully we'll have some more stuff to report in the coming weeks.
All right, let's go over to Don.
Yeah, as Venom mentioned, we have a couple of family shows to deal with. Creature Comforts is available. A ton of fun. Absolutely love that conversation. Glad to have the whole family back together with that one. The old underwater kaiju from outer space show that I'm really hoping some of the internal rumors are true, but we'll save that for a later date. The commentary that I did with the main show, which was a lot of fun, first time watch for me. So go ahead and listen to that, and fun running jokes for everybody throughout that one that made it even more fun. So give that one a watch. And I did have a couple of guest spots that I recorded as soon as the scammers leave me alone, and I can tell you about them in peace. Fuck off, spam risk. Just in case anybody realizes that's spam risk, so yeah, I'm right to ignore them. My guest spots are I got a couple in over the last week. First is with NFW for a topical look at Thanksgiving, which a lot of fun with that one. And got another one. I think you guys will be a little bit more familiar with them than the rest of everybody else, but I joined the Joe Blow Horror Show, and we did a special on Cemetery of Terror, which was a lot of fun. It's a low-budget Mexican slasher zombie hybrid that's really fun, and I really had a chance to talk about that one, which should be available soon. It'll be under the Joe Blow Horror Show. I know Venom's talked about being on there a couple of times, so it should be familiar. But yeah, I got to join the guys and have fun with that one. So that one should be available. Both of those should be available soon. I know Nudie's dealing with some stuff there that held up the show, so it may come out a little bit later. But either way, both of those will be out and available sooner rather than later. But other than that, that's about it for me.
All right. For me, nothing else besides the latest episode of No More Room in Hell. Well, I guess technically, yeah, 62, I guess can still be considered newish, and then 63 probably in about a week. And then, yeah, that's it. I think we're putting together a Thanksgiving commentary for the show, too, which I would assume would have to be recorded, within the next week, because Thanksgiving's like coming up quick. Another month that's flying by. So we'll get that situated and have that out. But yeah, I don't think there's any wide theatrical release this coming up week either. So
No, nothing until December 6th, when we've got 2 horror movies opening in theaters. So we'll have to make a decision. One is that Y2K movie. The other one is Werewolves.
cool.
And I think Werewolves might actually lean more towards action, but just the mere fact that there's werewolves in it, I call it horror. So
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, with that said, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Fresh Cuts. We'll be back in a week with a new one. Let's say bye to the listeners.
Later.
don't take cabs. How's that sound? Just don't take a cab.
Yeah, try a bus instead.
That's what Uber's for, damn it. Those guys can be traced.
Yeah, there's plenty of horror that could happen on a public bus, but probably not of the supernatural variety, at least, I guess. Peace.